it's Dr. Rick, and today's unboxing is actually on Starbucks Venti Iced Mocha White, whatever it is. I actually don't know the entire name of this thing. I just went to Starbucks to pick something with the highest amount of calories I could find. The marquee at Starbucks said 520 for sure. It didn't say how much sugar. It won't say how much sugar. But it doesn't look like coffee. This looks like coffee, and I don't have black coffee available right now, but if you were to need something in the morning, just have coffee, black coffee. If you need something of flavor, then get flavored coffee. If you don't like the bitterness of coffee and you need flavor, just have breakfast, or I have tea. This is my green tea. It actually looks brown. The water's been in the leaves for a while, so it's oxidized a bit. Usually as I have my morning cups, I have about 1 liter to 2 liters a day. I just take a single brew and just keep on redoing it with the same leaves every morning. To me, that's enough caffeine. That's also enough EGCG and other polyphenols that come with the green tea, L-theanine included. I know that there are some great things with coffee and coffee bean, and there are some studies that show coffee every day does increase longevity, but it also increases reflux, and I can't have that. If I was to go work out and I was tired because I went to sleep too late at night, I might do a shot of coffee. I typically don't because I'm very regimented with getting to sleep and then waking up trying to use the window of sleep as my energy booster. This unboxing is just to make you aware of what happens not only when you drink this stuff. I'm calling out some of my patients. I will see people carrying this around. When I went to go wash my car, I passed by Dunkin' Donuts at my old Bartlett office. Somebody was just enjoying their whatever it was that is equivalent to this, and even had that white mustache. And I thought, you know, first thing in the morning, I'm fasting and that person is drinking their food. Yes, this is food, and it's causing a hormonal response, just like the opposite of what I'm trying to get with fasting. So this year I'm turning 60. And with turning 60, it's a big milestone. And it also introduces the decade of disease. If you look at when your parents might have died, when your friends might have had disease, when disease usually comes, it usually comes at 50 to 60 years of age. And then death comes at 70 to 80 years of age. So great to look forward to this stuff. But I'm doing things now to beat that. So I'm preemptively trying to feed my lifestyle so that I will get past these next 2 decades, 3 decades. So I can see my grandson graduate college, hopefully, and see what happens with the world. Maybe go into outer space. Who knows? I definitely am going to climb Everest this year. I don't know when, just to base camp. That has always been my goal, my summit. But bottom line, getting back to this, so when you have this whole thing within what? Even if you just drink half of it, within a matter of 30 to 60 minutes, what happens hormonally is that you have no choice, especially if you have to go through the whipped cream beforehand. Whipped cream, whether there's sugar in this, and I failed to ask, but there's either going to be sugar, which causes an insulin spike, or there's going to be a sugar substitute, which in theory doesn't get you to make insulin as fast. But sugar substitutes, you should know this, will affect the way the gut microbiome operates. And I wanted to bring this up because I'm doing a whole gut series in the last week to 2 weeks, because I do think that my patients that have many different reasons for root cause analysis for me to investigate, it usually comes down to the fact that there's an initial traumatic event or something of a system that's usually offline, the deepest. And usually they'll find that the gut is going to be the relatable component that's always going to be off with most people. Bloating, diarrhea, constipation, IBS, an old infection from way back when, or reflux, or hemorrhoids. They're all symptoms of a gastrointestinal tract that is not working properly. So if it's not working properly and then you just eat this kind of food, because it is food, because it has an effect to your gastrointestinal tract and your hormones, If you just eat this food for your breakfast, that's the first signal that you're introducing to your body as far as a food source. When you get up, you're inducing diabetes. And with diabetes comes high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, stroke, all those other things downstream. I know it's hard to fathom that, but let's just think of it this way. Along the terms of what sugar or sugar substitutes do, you don't need sugar. We don't have a sugar deficiency being human. We might have a protein deficiency, you might have a fat or essential fatty acid deficiency, maybe a vitamin D deficiency, but we don't have carbohydrate deficiencies and we don't have sugar deficiencies. Never. And the objective of this food source, especially this size, is that it's supposed to get you to feel good. And it might get you to feel good at the price of diabetes in about 10 years, maybe sooner for some of you that are already on the overweight size or obese size, or your BMI is higher than 25. I have a video on how to calculate your BMI, so I'll put the link down below. And I'll also, while I'm talking about it, put the link down below on what I did as far as insulin resistance. This, when you eat it or drink it in the morning, it makes the pancreas, once the stomach senses there's a whole bunch of carbohydrate and sugar coming down, or sugar substitute, the stomach is that sensitive that it can sense the products that are in it. And when it senses high carb, high sugar, and it gets a taste of that, even as your mouth gets a taste of it, already it sends signals to the brain, and the brain sends signals to the pancreas, and the pancreas says, get ready, here comes the sugar meal. And the pancreas starts to let go of a tsunami of insulin, because insulin has to take the glucose and sugar and whatever crap that we eat and bind with it and put it away, because having glucose and sugar float around in the bloodstream is irritating. So we have to get it out of the bloodstream and into the cell. And you can only get that into the cell by combining it with insulin, and that usually gives you the key to open the door to get it into the cell. The problem is if you constantly get too much into the cell gets super stuffed, like a closet that's got to be pushed to close, or a trunk that you can't close because it's too full. And what happens is, especially like with the liver becomes fatty because all that crappy stuff that you ate had to be detoxed, stuffed away in the fat here. There's fat stores or fat depot areas. The belly, the viscera, the love handles, the arms, the legs. After all those areas are full to capacity, then the liver starts to have to store stuff, and then you get a fatty liver. A non-alcoholic fatty liver disease or elevated liver enzymes are the beginning, but that leads to cirrhosis later on down the line, so you got to be careful with this. So you can see the downsides of eating this stuff, and you probably didn't think about it because it was tasting so good. And truthfully, I've never tasted this before, and I'm not going to taste this. I'll keep it in the fridge. I'll probably dump it after the video is over. I spent $6.25 just for this video because I wanted to show you this thing and tell you that this has 520 calories that you shouldn't be having. Honestly, average American should be having like 520 calories per meal. I know that all of us usually eat like 3,000 a day, maybe 2,000 to 2,500. I exist at like the 1,500 calorie a day diet, but I'm also an intermittent faster. Let me explain that, because I do the opposite of what this does. I fast in the morning. I've found that fasting is an easy way. If you don't want to count calories, you don't want to track your macros, because that's a way that you empower yourself to lose weight and step back from eating too much, is knowing what your daily sustenance is and hitting the mark and then stopping. If you are unaware of how many macros you take in, that means fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, or how many calories you take in, or the fact that this equals 520 calories, or that this equals a certain amount of carbohydrates. In fact, I'm going to try to look up 35.3 grams of carbs, 34.5 grams of sugar. That's a lot of carbs. That's a lot of sugar. You shouldn't be having more than 5 grams of sugar a day. This gives you insulin in the morning, meaning that it makes you secrete a ton of insulin to match the amount of 35 grams of carbohydrate and sugar. And then right after, in about 3 hours, you crash looking for more because your insulin went up and then it went down, because insulin takes that carbohydrate and that sugar, puts it into the cell. So it pushes away that sugar so that your blood is cleared of it, but also the insulin is gone. And eventually you'd bottom out. So when your brain is looking for energy, when your muscles are looking for energy, there's no energy because everything got stuffed away in storage. And when it gets stuffed away in storage, your brain's going to say, okay, I need more energy. So what are you going to search for? You're going to search for the fastest energy source available, which the brain's going to think sugar and carb. It's going to make you want this again. Hopefully you're not going to have another one. You might go for a heavy carbohydrate lunch and you go through the spike again in the trough. See, it sets you up. So I don't eat until usually 10 to 11 a.m. because I want the overnight fast to be extended in the morning so that the signal in the morning to my metabolism and my muscle is I'm in starvation. Build muscle. I'm in starvation. Eat the fat that I stored all night. So that's the only time you can liberate this storage of fat, is to send the signal to the metabolism, eat whatever is being stored. If you have this, you become insulin resistant because you constantly have this every morning and insulin's constantly fired off in massive amounts in tsunamis every morning. Well, your body is going to get used to that and it's going to say, wait a minute, I don't like that insulin being so high in the morning. Let's ignore it. And then you become insulin resistant. And what's worse is that the next time, the next year that you have this or continue to have this, you're going to need more insulin to put this away, and it'll keep on getting higher and higher until eventually you become diabetic. Or your hemoglobin A1Cs, that's that every 3-month blood test, eventually they turn positive. Colleagues in medicine will usually just get a glucose and say, you're not diabetic. Or they'll get a hemoglobin A1C if they have suspicion, like you're obese and you're not exercising and you admit to bad eating. They'll get a hemoglobin A1C and say, well, you're still below 6, so you're not diabetic yet. Work on your weight, exercise, I'll see you next year, which I think is totally wrong. I get insulins because insulins are more sensitive and they turn positive way before the hemoglobin A1C turns positive. There is something called a 2-hour glucose tolerance test, which is the most sensitive, but it's a pain in the ass to do that. They usually do it for moms that are pregnant in the beginning trimester, and I think that's great because you can find diabetes before it affects the baby. A diabetic baby comes out huge, and when a huge baby is delivered, it can't pass through the pelvis. There's increased chances to be delivered by cesarean section, and then that'll screw up the gut microbiome as well because you don't get the vaginal bacteria. It's all screwed up. But bottom line is that pregnant ladies do 2-hour glucose tolerance tests, and they find diabetes even when it's not evident. Well, we could do 2-hour glucose tolerance tests on everybody, but that's an expensive test and it's a pain in the ass. So I just do insulin tests. If you're going to get a fasting blood test, which includes a hemoglobin A1C, urine test, glucose test, I do an insulin level. If the insulin level is in the 10s to 20s, that's positive for insulin resistance. That's the first step into diabetes. It's a form of diabetes. And I'd say at that point in time, I light the fire to get your ass moving as far as lifestyle change. It all boils down to what kind of signals are you sending to your metabolism? The bad signals that are going to lead you down the road of diabetes, or the good signals that will keep you away from diabetes and introduce you to longevity. I'm not saying green tea is the answer to longevity, but it's better than this. People who want to live long and not have disease, and people who are not aware or not being guided properly. Please, you have a choice. Don't eat that. Have something else. Have black coffee. Make it on your own. If I can compress my morbidity so I don't live with disease, I just get to a ripe age and die fast, I think that would help everybody. God forbid. I'm trying to avoid that. Food for thought is make your choice. Fasting or just green tea or the opposite. So next time you go out to buy one of these things, think of this video and research on your own other options. Maybe you shouldn't go cold turkey off of this because you'll have nasty headaches and chest pain, because the insulin resistance that you have probably developed will make you want to have this. When you move away from it and you stop carbohydrates and sugar cold turkey, your body's going to kick back and say, where's my sugar? Where's my carbohydrate? And it's going to give you every symptom in the world. That's what insulin resistance does. It gives you every symptom in the world to say to your brain that you don't have any energy, so we're going to die. And then the brain gets frantically anxious, making you search for food and also making you feel lousy. That's the detox that you might have to go through over a couple days. But maybe just switch over to black coffee if you can tolerate the taste, or hazelnut, because there's a little bit of flavor in that. But bottom line, make your choices properly. Know that you're not being guided properly by the food industry. And even though it tastes good going down, you're going to pay for it later on. If you have any comments on what you might substitute with, or how you guys got off your cafe mocha latte, whatever it is, please put them in the comments section down below to give other people that are watching ideas. And don't forget, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm so I can make more videos. And think about subscribing or sharing this with other people. Thanks for watching up to this point. Stay healthy. See you at the next video.